What's up, guys? This is Emmanuel Football Club Magazine, and we're back for another episode of soccer. We got Ryan on the pod today. John could unfortunately not be here today with us. He will be missed, but he will definitely be on the next one, where we are also going to have a special guest, and we're excited to kind of let on the day of, we're going to keep you on the edge. But Ryan, a lot of action over the weekend, a lot of action throughout the week. Tell me about it. How has it been for you?
Oh my god, it's been a blast and a half, honestly. It's just been so much going on within soccer, outside of it. One thing that I'm excited about, we did the tournament drafts a couple weeks ago, right? The Stanley Cup playoffs, they begin this weekend. We're in full swing of Champions League. They're in the semis right now. It's so much action all happening at once. The NBA had their play-in tournament also, so it's just been playoffs on playoffs on playoffs. Open Cup had some craziness too, as we're recording this on the Thursday after the Open Cup round of 32, and it's just so much fun. It's all crazy at this point, but this point of the year, this April to June stretch, to me is the best time of the year because of how much is going on all at once, man.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, speaking of crazy, the results throughout the weekend were, I mean, I wouldn't say surprising, but some teams, kind of surprising us. For example, Charlotte FC definitely losing at home for the first time in the season to Nashville. And I mean, it was a good game. I thought that, there was nothing I could really be upset about on Charlotte's behalf. It was just more like, you win some, you lose some. But yeah, and then we also had the U.S. Open Cup today. Well, yesterday, which Charlotte did happen to win 6-0, but we'll get into that in a minute. Anyways, the craziest thing coming out of the MLS is Neymar to Cincinnati.
News!
Yeah, Neymar to Cincinnati. How about that, man?
I mean, okay, so there was a lot of news, as I just said, and this was the part that I was honestly one of the most excited things to talk with you about. And I've had a lot of thoughts since that I've kept in because I wanted to save it for the recording, right? So we start off with this Neymar situation, and Cincinnati was definitely not the first on my bucket list. If I had to take a guess, everyone would have obviously assumed potentially Inter Miami, right? You reunite with Messi, they've got a good thing going down there. More on them in a little bit. But with Neymar and going to Cincinnati, there are a lot of elements going into this I think could be really interesting. Like, there's the MLS has provided opportunity for some of these players to kind of reinvent themselves in a new light, right? Neymar's in his 30. You've trashed on him more times than we can talk. He's
What? I've never trashed the man, dog. What do you mean?
roll the clip talking about his injuries, how he doesn't deserve to be on the Brazil call-ups, whatever it is. Roll the clips. But currently right now, like he's on a Santos team that is kind of dealing with a relegation battle in the Brazilian side. He did come up with a statement, very simply put, I have a contract with Santos until the end of the year and I intend to see it through, end quote. But you look at the other MLS stars that have come recently, right? The Messis, the Suarez, even, when Sonny came over, those took months to years of progression to take. I think the Messi deal took like 5 years for Beckham and Messi just going back and forth until eventually crossed the finish line, right? Suarez took well over a year. Santos' season isn't going to be over till December, but what about that condensed season for MLS come next year? All these things are going to take time. It's going to take opportunity. And I think if you're Neymar, if there's a franchise that you could do it with, why not one of the most recently successful teams in MLS? They won the Supporter Shield recently, Cincinnati. I believe they've been top 3 in the Eastern Conference for the last 4 or 5 years, something like that, maybe a little less than that. But you have a stable franchise that has seen repeated success. They haven't gotten over the hump yet, and they think maybe something that Neymar can provide can allow for that, seeing that they haven't even made an MLS final despite all this regular season success. Let alone, I don't think they've gotten a conference final either. I think one conference final is all they've had.
Yeah, and I mean, despite all of that, Cincinnati's always been a competitive team. I would say from their beginning. Uh, Almost kind of like a LAFC situation. When LAFC came into the league, nobody was expecting them to become such a competitive side so soon. One thing that I do want to point out is Santos in a relegation battle. What's going on in 2026 that all these powerhouses of soccer are just like battling to stay in, Division One of their respective countries.
I mean,
Like,
Spurs has been a meme too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I was about to say.
That's been a meme too.
I know. And I mean, such an interesting topic to even hear Santos being in this position, right? Because you think of Santos in Brazil, and bro, they're one of the biggest, most known, most successful teams in the country. So yeah, I mean, another thing, Neymar to Cincinnati, dude, it's just it's crazy. Like crazy to think about it just because that's like you said, it's not the first team that you would think of. If anything, to me, I probably would have said Inter Miami, which he has been linked there before, Orlando to join Griezmann. I could actually see that being a thing.
Well, yeah, and you kind of see not just from the soccer perspective it because that's what we've been talking about so far is the actual sport, the actual soccer part of it, right? But then there's also you hear this a lot from guys across other sports of reasons why they choose to go with certain teams. We even heard this in our interview with Clay last week, how he wanted to stay in Charlotte because there was a homey environment there. That's where his family really developed. And maybe it's not all about the money, you know? Sometimes you have guys who want to go to places because perhaps they want to retire comfortably. Why else, for example, would David Beckham, of all places in the MLS at the time, choose LA? Because it's LA. Just the fact that you're there, you're an international superstar. You go to the spot of celebrities in the US, Los Angeles. That's it. Why do you have these rumors of these top players going to these major cities? LA, New York, Miami's been in the mix. Chicago Fire has hit on a couple of guys internationally too. It's not just the idea of what's good for the soccer part of it, but also they have families, they have lives that they want to bring in as well. And that's also the element of it. But also, I will throw this out there. This is kind of a jab, just for funsies. But when you have some of these players who are kind of past their prime and you hear them kind of choosing a
And
lot of
he's
LA,
saying that I be trashing this man.
Florida. They're choosing Florida. They're choosing LA, San Diego. Unfortunately, the MLS is so much fun, but with things like this, they're never going to beat the retirement league allegations. Unfortunately, but
Yeah, unfortunately,
they're
at
not
least
support. It's not
not right
helping.
now. Yeah, it's not helping. But then we also hear of Coutinho going to LA Galaxy. We hear of Casemiro to Inter Miami. So tell me about this. How do you feel about a player like Casemiro coming to the MLS?
I mean, obviously, all stars coming to MLS is going to be huge for Major League Soccer in a way, right? You had that initial wave about a dozen or so years ago when Beckham came in. You've had this kind of lull with the US not performing up to standards, not performing even enough to miss a World Cup in 2018. That kind of put a halt in the progression of soccer here. And then you had 2022 where you had that avalanche of making the knockouts again in Qatar. And then Messi comes into play. And you just have this whole wave of guys. Sonny's right after. Suarez is there. Inter Miami becomes a super team and Mueller and everything else. And we've mentioned this before on this show. And I think this kind of continues that trend where it's the upward momentum that the MLS is trying to build because they want to gain the respect of everyone else. I think one thing that I don't think we mentioned the last time is that how many of these clubs in Europe, in South America, what have you, have been around for a literal century versus the MLS, which has only been around for a quarter of that. So they're still trying to establish themselves as a league, as a reputable place for soccer to be in the world, which is why they're making all these changes, trying to bring in all these guys. And it's the classic adage, right? You got to look out for number one, which is yourself. In the MLS's interest and their intentions is to look out for themselves by putting themselves within the respect of the world because they want it to benefit MLS at the end of the day. And American soccer, which once again comes back to the academies, the second teams back into MLS as a whole, and whatever else, whoever else could be running it, if it's still Don Garber, if he steps down after his contract ends, etc. And it's also an interesting time to pick Inter Miami now of all times because of this Master Antonio news that came up over the weekend, how he didn't get fired, he didn't get let go, there wasn't a mutual agreement, he stepped down. And I think that's the most interesting part of this Inter Miami saga is the reason behind it. And I think the language is the most interesting part, stepping down. And I think that is a very curious case of maybe something away from the field, but it does bring a lot more intrigue to an Inter Miami team that only has one loss through their first seven.
I'm not really sure about this topic. Haven't really read up a lot on it, other than the fact that he was no longer a coach. But it is a situation of like, how can a coach just step down? I mean, I know there's clauses in contracts that allowed him to, but in the middle of the season, especially in a I would call successful beginning to a season, right? Why is this happening? But yeah, give me the scoop.
So this is the quote. This is per ESPN.com. I want to give credit to the writer Lizzie Betrano. I probably butchered that, but I want to cite my sources. Unlike some people within the NFL community, that's a topic for not this show, but just had to throw that out there. But from Javier Mascherano himself, I want to let everyone know that for personal reasons, I've decided to end my tenure as the head coach at Inter Miami CF, and then the rest is the usual stuff. I want to thank the club. I want to thank the team. Jorge Mas, the usual stuff. He'll be always a part of the club's history. They respect their decision. And of course, it's all about the professional and personal futures of everyone involved. But this kind of goes into the topic that we just talked about, right? With the whole free agency situation, that there are so many more levels to this game that we don't even realize. Sometimes we hear they went there, they chose to go there. Why make that decision? You can either look at it from the verbatim soccer side of things or look back at what is at the end of the day the human element of it all. Like, some guys could be coming up down the pipeline. There have been rumors of Mo Salah wanting to go to the U.S. potentially. You even have, we have the Griezmann situation, and we knew about how much he really liked being a part of the U.S. ecosystem, like as a whole. And obviously, you never know what's going on with any one person and what may be going on with them. But what we do know is that it's a point of transition for Javier Mascherano, for Inter Miami. They have to pick a new coach. They're top three in the MLS Eastern Conference as it stands. Messi and Suarez are still producing like they are. And it's an opportunity for someone else to maybe step into the plate, player or coach, to be like, hey, we're not going to let this deter us. Let's keep this momentum rolling, and let's see if we can make a run for a team that was the preseason favorite probably since 2024.
I mean, now that you're saying all of this, I'm thinking about the timing of his, of him stepping down. It is during the time where, you still have time to, rethink your coaching staff leading into the World Cup. So it could be a situation where maybe he's being offered a position at the Argentinian national team. And I mean, obviously, if he wants to be part of that, he would need to step down from the Inter Miami position, which, if that does end up happening, that would be a very interesting thing to see, and it would really give us the answers that right now we're kind of looking for, right? So yeah. And speaking of all of this, I just want to ask you this, man. Like, we're in that transition period where all these superstars, like, these are superstars just because we live in a generation where social media, streaming, and even the broadcast has created this huge personalities in the sport, right? In the past 15 years, something that we've not really seen before in the past. So is Don Gerber taking advantage of all of this and using it and applying it to the MLS? Would you say this is the best way to do it?
Honestly, who knows what is going on with that situation? The only thing I do know is I believe Don Garber's on the last year of his current contract, and there could absolutely be one of those situations where at the moment your time is running out. You may or may not have a negotiation or a contract in place, and you're just trying to find everything you can to either do one of two things. Either say, screw everything and I'm going to leave it worse than it was, which I don't think Don Garber's going to do, but maybe like some random person at an everyday job could. Or you're probably going to do everything you can to either prove, hey, I can stay in this. I'm worth the money. I'm worth the contract, the effort of continuing on this process. And you could make that argument, at least, how there's an element of trying to prove something to yourself and to the audience because you want that next chance if you're Garber. I'd assume so. So having all of this buzz around the MLS, can most certainly be beneficial if you go by the old adage of all news is good news, or what is it? All press is good press, I think is how it goes. That's just the way that I see it personally. It most certainly are going to be layers to everything that much of which the general public or even us in the media space aren't going to be privy to. But the best we can do is just kind of figure out some of the context clues and piece together the best interpretation that we can.
For sure. And I mean, I think one thing that we'll always be thankful for is him backtracking on the idea of, pulling the MLS from the US Open Cup, because this week we got to experience and see, I mean, once again, some cup sets, right? We got Knoxville knocking out DC United. And
Yeah.
last night we had Charlotte FC versus Charlotte Independence. First derby ever for me, for everybody in that crowd. We were all very excited to see what was going to happen. We were not expecting that result, but this is just the U.S. Open Cup. That's just what happens.
I mean, how good is the US Open Cup, right? Like I think if we took that little snake draft we did and like extended it one more round, the Open Cup most certainly would have been taken because it's such a fun tournament to have because it truly is. And I've heard this from some of the coaches I've interviewed talk about how it's one of the true meritocracies of the sport, how it's like you just are what you are. And at the end of the day, the final score is the final score, right? You can be Debbie Downers at DC United because you lost to one Knox, but at the same time, Knoxville played one heck of a game. And, Ian Fuller has basically gotten this team to a point where they may be trying to push for promotion in a couple of years. And I think he might have fast tracked that because he's just done a stellar job already enhancing what was already a fantastic Knoxville culture. They already made the playoffs before Ian got there, and he took them into a double his first year and now a round of 16 in year two. And that just speaks to how good Ian Fuller has been. I want to shout him out too because I actually called his first game in 2025, the first game of his coaching career. And I didn't know it was going to be this good right out the gate, but I did have a hunch that he was going to add something to what was already well established within Knoxville. And I thought it was going to be a step up. I didn't know it would be to this level. So Knoxville going to a round of 16, having another clash with most likely an MLS side, and then you had opportunities across the board too. Orlando almost got beaten out by FC Naples in Naples, which was such a fun game to watch. The Switchbacks just roundhoused Sporting Kansas City 3-0 straight up. And how good was Louisville? At home, defending the dirt, Austin in town, and closed up business on them. Like, this is why the Open Cup is so much fun because, and I've heard this from so many coaches, how those 90 minutes are everything to some of these players for whatever reason it may be that we've established before. And at least for us as viewers, upsets are fun. Can we be honest about them, Emil? Let's be honest. Upsets are fun.
They were, and I was getting some fire last week because John and Clay were putting me on the spot, asking me to pick a team, right? And I really couldn't. I was stuck in that situation where, um, I I definitely just want to see the percentage in the U.S. Open Cup. I mean, either team could have won. I mean, one team won, but either team could have won, and I still would have been happy, right? But once I was there at the game last night, something in the atmosphere just kind of made me a little excited to know that Charlotte Independence could beat Charlotte and move on to that next round. So yeah, I mean, it's something about the underdog in this case, beating, the established big David versus Goliath situation and that you've mentioned before. And to me, that was very exciting to watch. It was an exciting game to watch despite the scoreboard. And
Which
if you
one?
watch
Charlotte, right?
Charlotte Independence versus Charlotte, it was exciting. And if you watch the game, you'll know that up until the second half, it was a pretty even game. That red card really defined what the rest of the game was going to be like. Uh, I mean, it was a hard tackle, last man situation. So I mean, there's no dispute in the car, but it just makes you wonder how different would the game would have gone if they would have played 11 on 11.
Absolutely. And, you had opportunities all over the place too. You had Minnesota and Sacramento going to pens, New England and Rhode Island went to pens. Union Omaha lost to Colorado Rapids in Colorado by only a 1-0 final, and Omaha were pushing for large chunks of that game. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Chattanooga FC scored first on Atlanta United in Chattanooga. So the opportunities were most certainly there, and it most certainly brought a lot of that excitement to a tournament where, you can argue that, and this is kind of going into our next segment um about the Champions League, but there were kind of opportunities for both teams, right? I think for Champions League, they had the great equalizer of the aggregate.
Cup, right?
No, I was referring to the Champions League in Europe because they have well, actually both, because it's true for both of them.
Yeah, it's true for both of them.
Because the
But no,
great
the aggregate
great
is
equalizer
not it's
aggregate.
not a thing anymore.
No, but like I'm saying in relation to the Open Cup, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah,
have the
yeah.
one and done where anything truly happens versus in the two Champions Cups, both in Europe and in CONCACAF, the aggregate kind of becomes the equalizer. because you don't have that second opportunity to redeem yourself. If you don't put out your best in 90, that is it. That is why DC United are out and one Knoxville are in the round of 16, because that 90 minutes or 120 is truly it at the end of the day. And I think it also shows that the talent and the quality of teams and coaching and compete level has been very equal, all things considered. Some of these games are literally, MLS teams are literally surviving by the skin of their teeth in some of these games.
I mean, it was interesting to watch the Club America Nashville game. Having watched Nashville play Charlotte the weekend prior to, well, yeah, literally this weekend that just this past weekend.
Mhm.
So I didn't even realize that they were going to be playing Champions League throughout the week, CONCACAF and Club America. So to me that was interesting to watch, just because the rhythm of the game that they were playing was not. It was just not what I was expecting. I was expecting a little bit of a tired Nashville team, given that they didn't really do a whole lot of rotation. I mean, they almost basically started with the same lineup as they did with Charlotte, and to me that surprised me, because I know that on the Club America side, they rested some of their guys during the regular league game so that they could have a better chance at the Champions Cup. So it just kind of tells you the difference in the fitness levels. Also, the fact that they were at Estadio Banorte, which formerly Estadio Azteca,
Mhm.
it tells you a lot. I mean, people were talking about how Nashville didn't really spend the whole 2 days like teams normally do in the city, just to try to avoid feeling the effects of the elevation and all of that. But that speaks volumes of the MLS, in my opinion.
I mean, you understand the quality across the board, right? And you mentioned how, some of these Mexican clubs were actually resting their guys for season play and putting in the rotation for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Well, at least I can say this from the MLS Next Pro's perspective, because I did a couple of the games this weekend, including LAFC second team, which I just finished wrapping up last night. There's like an open acknowledgement that the CONCACAF Champions Cup is one of the stages that they're allowing their young kids to show up and shine, right? We've seen this in the Open Cup of years past. And even the Open Cup now, how they're putting in a lot of their next pro guys, the up and comers, the guys off the end of the bench. And that's how a lot of these MLS teams have treated the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Maybe not so much in these later stages, but that was definitely true early on. Like, you're still getting Boanga, you're still getting Sonny, you're still getting Hugo Lloris for LAFC, for example. And those are just, based on that game, because I did LAFC second team. So that's fresh in my head. But it's opportunities for really everyone to show up on that big stage, right? And show what you really can do. And like I mentioned, the aggregate kind of becomes the big equalizer here, because you have, I feel like, more of a true example of who is the better team between these two, a leg one and a leg two type of a scenario. And then we also saw that with, the Champions League overseas, where these aggregate competitions and these second legs have been proving so vital, and how much kind of chaos has come from that as well.
Definitely opportunity. And I mean, to finish off the Champions Cup, it's still a fairly even competition, if you ask me. I mean, we got two Liga MX teams that will be facing, LAFC and Nashville in the finals. So we got Toluca and Tigres still in the competition, which we all know that they've been fairly competitive in Liga MX. So again, we continue to have this argument of like, how are these tournaments leveling the ground on the football side of everything? So man, they just keep giving us a lot to talk about.
I think one of these days I need to come up with another blind ranking of the various playoff formats around American sports, because we've talked about the one and done, we've talked about aggregate, I talked about the NBA and the NHL, which are best of sevens. So maybe that's a future like blind ranking or tier list that we can come up with on a later day. Uh, but that also shows like what this sport has continued to evolve into, right? How I think I saw a crazy. This is completely off the wall, by the way, but it's something that I saw recently, so I'm going to bring it up. I saw someone. It was some random guy. I think I saw him in IG Reels. How he was pitching the idea of the NFL using the aggregate system that soccer does, and how cool that would be, especially now that the NFL has continuously tried to push for extra games. Why not just make them playoff games by making like wild card weekend and maybe the divisional round aggregates?
Yeah, like
I
two
think it would
leg.
be, yeah, like imagine for example, like, I'm gonna use, except for the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is a standalone, right? But
Yeah.
But let's say, for example, you have like the first playoff round, if I'm not mistaken, it was you had the Bills and the Jaguars, right? I'm using this because I'm from Western New York. It's all fresh in my head. Buffalo beat Jacksonville in Jacksonville by 3 in the wild card.
I knew you were about to say this.
Two would go back to Western New York where the Bills have a premeditated 3-point lead. And then you play it out again, for example, right?
Yeah.
Maybe make it like a Thursday, Sunday type of an ordeal, or make it 2 weeks if Goodell wants to do that. But I saw that online. I thought that'd be like a really funny concept to bring up of like other sports changing their respective playoff formats.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
if
it's beneficial, like you said.
and like it checks all the boxes too, right? The NFL wants more games. I'm sure it would be a much greater equalizer of like who's truly the best team going forward. Like you're not going to have a blown call in the divisional game where they call a catch an interception for no reason whatsoever in overtime of all things, and then you get beat on a bad officiating call, and then you have no chance to redeem that. Where it's just flags galore. Like you have a second chance to prove that like no, you are the better team at the end of the day, and the best team did not move on, and that's why you get Seattle winning the Super Bowl by an absolute landslide.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they don't move into the NBA finals, I think the NFL has a good chance at making that format work.
I
So, I
mean,
mean,
to be fair, the best of seven works for NBA, at least in that
yeah,
context.
I mean, I feel like it works because they've done it for so long that it's just like the default. But 6, 7 games gets a little tiring, man. Like me personally, watching them go at it 3 times, I think would be more than enough.
I mean, okay, for the NFL purposes, sure. Maybe part of it also has to do with like the ratio of like playoff games to regular season games because the NFL is like a 17 game season and they do one and done, right? The soccer
Yeah,
season, like predominantly the soccer season, it's like one and done, sure, but like you have all these cup competitions, they're 2 legs, but they're like what, a 40 game season, give or take. And then you have the NBA and the NHL, they're best of sevens. Same with the MLB, it's best of seven, but you have 80 games. The NHL is going to go to 84 games, and the MLB is 160 games. So I guess it kind of works in respect to that like, well, if you're in the MLB, you play every day. If you're in the NHL, the NBA, every other day. And then when you're coming to soccer, you have midweeks, and then you obviously have the one a week for the NFL. So I guess in relation to that, it does make sense in that way. But I think it would be fun if like some sports just randomly adopted other playoff formats.
yeah.
Like I just think it'd be hilarious in its own way. Like watching the Olympic hockey coverage go to groups and knockouts was fun as hell.
Yeah, and you know where that's gonna happen? I mean, this is completely going along with your side note because this is not related to the show, but
It's fine. I like this. I like this segment anyways. Keep going.
so I've been reading that like the independent like sports systems that people are creating, they're gonna be worth around three. It's gonna be a $3 billion industry. So, for example, like if I decide to make like a car racing, like RC car racing thing in my backyard and have people come and compete, and I somehow manage to like stream it and let it become a brand, like that's where you're gonna see this little like takeaways from certain sports into this sport to make the sport more interesting happen. So I'm excited to see it,
Look at the
in the
Savannah
next
Bananas.
4 or 5 years because it's gonna be a crazy system. And you know what? I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, but I might just have to make my own league where the players are allowed to scrap for like 30 seconds if they have beef on the field.
If they have beef on the field, just it's soccer, but make it hockey, right? If they have
Here, but
beef,
make it hockey. See, and that's what I'm
if
saying. Like taking away from some sports, maybe we may not see it at the professional level, but there's opportunity here, man.
oh my gosh,
I'm
absolutely.
gonna need you
I
to
can't
call some of these games, man.
Honestly, I can't imagine having like because in the NHL, right? If you fight, it's 5 minutes. It's a 5 minute penalty for both guys off the ice. Like I can't imagine just a random period in the middle of the game, a scrap breaks out, and you play 10v10 for 5 minutes straight.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
then you have the great equalizer, right? And like they can get back in the game, they got their frustration out, leave it and move on. Unless you want to double red card them and play the rest of the game 10v10, and that'd be fun too.
and the funny part would be the ref has to carry around a pair of yellow gloves and then a pair of red gloves. You know what I'm saying? And whoever loses has to stay up for 10 instead of 5.
I mean, that could be the case. Or if the scrap is bad enough, you just say screw it. Double reds, 10v10 the rest of the way.
Oh man, yeah, concussion protocol is about to be crazy in that league, but let's move on, man. So, Champions League, MLS, we had the MLS, games this weekend. Charlotte did lose to Nashville. I was a little shocked to see that happen. Just But nothing that I could, complain or, like, be upset about for Charlotte. I mean, they played a hard game. It was a good game. Both teams played well. I mean, anybody coulda won that game, and Nashville won that game. So, yeah, we talked about the cup sets, we talked about this, but you know who continues to surprise me in the league? LAFC, just because of how bad they were doing last season. And then this season, boom,
LAFC or
totally
LA
different.
Galaxy?
I mean, LA Galaxy.
I was gonna say you always get those. I was gonna say like you always get those two mixed up.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what's in the water over there in LA, but whatever it is, it's working for them.
I mean, you could make a similar argument for some of the teams who are kind of popping off right now. There's always a team that just pops up out of nowhere, right? Like you have the expansion side, San Diego. They're their first year, and they just run the table basically as like a top team in the Western Conference last year, and like this year, it's a three-headed horse at the top of the Western Conference at the moment. Vancouver, sure, they made the final. LAFC, sure, they're always there. But all of a sudden, like San Jose is tied for the top of the conference. They were out of the playoffs last year. Same with RSL. Like, I don't think they made the playoffs last year. Maybe they were like that wild card team. That 8-9 thing I think is just really dumb on the MLS's part, but I get wanting to add extra games. And like every single year, at least a couple of teams pop off out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Even teams like, you have your teams like, your Chicago's and your Nashville's, like middle of the road teams. You didn't expect them to do much, but they've been finding something new. Every team, every year provides something different, something exciting. And we going back to what we talked about earlier, I think this is kind of what Garber wants. He wants an element of parity. He wants an element of randomness. Unless you're CF Montreal, there's gonna be something new every single year.
Bro, you didn't have to do 'em like that.
I mean, we've been talking about random things becoming memes. We talked about Spurs relegating become a meme. Unfortunately, this whole Montreal situation has become like a meme in MLS circles also. So I had to throw that out there. But like going back to the thing that we started the show with, that this is probably part of what Garber envisions for the MLS, the parity, the randomness. Any team can get good at any time. You just find the right coach, get one or two players that are coming in from either the MLS or internationally, have a couple of young prospects. Like look what the Red Bulls are doing this year,
Yeah.
where they're taking Inter Miami toe to toe, and they're doing it with essentially their MLS Next Pro team from last year. Like most of the big guys contributing were I did their games in Next Pro last year. 17-year-old guys, 18, 19, like these guys are kids in the respect of MLS, but they've shown up. Michael Bradley leads the charge, and basically they've been men right out of the gate, and they've hung in with the best of them, even tying Inter Miami in their new stadium, which is called New Stadium. Side pivot. What a name, right? The new stadium, new stadium. Am I right?
Hey, it's kinda like a Camp Nou thing. But, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of randomness, but again, not so much either. Because you see Seattle Sounders, making their way out of the Champions Cup. I mean, Tigres is not a bad team, so, I mean, it's not a surprise that this happened, but given the fact that they did win the previous, they won last year, it just makes me wonder.
They still made the top 8 in
Yeah,
the
they still
tournament, all
made
things
what is
considered.
this is quarterfinals, so they made it far enough to, not be questionable, It's like, okay, yeah, you win it sometimes, but it's not like they flunked or anything like that. So, I mean, MLS staying interesting, but out of Seattle Sounders, a couple news that did happen throughout the weekend. I mean, yeah, throughout the weekend and the week. But Obed Vargas situation, that's something that just, is going around. People are reacting to it, and it's interesting because are you familiar with it?
Not this specific scenario, but I do know about some of the various thoughts and reactions of the whole nationality flippage.
So reports coming out of the Mexican national coaching staff that recruit, the young talents throughout the world. The guy that was in charge of recruiting here in the US, he spoke about the many times that he will call up Seattle Sounders and request for Obed Vargas to, be part of training camp to, compete with the Mexican national team. And they were basically saying no, like we're not gonna let him. To the point where sometimes Obed Vargas wasn't even getting the notices. So it's an interesting situation of like, is this right? Is this wrong? Do teams hold that kind of power? Especially in a league like MLS where you see players being traded like in the NBA and NFL, where 1 minute you're part of the team and the next you're out. We don't really see that anywhere else in the world.
I mean, there are so many ways that you can go about this, right? Because especially in the last like 2 years or so, there have been so many international tournaments across all sports, right? And this is very true across the board. You had, the World Baseball Classic that happened just a couple months back, and you could argue that pretty much all of Team Italy, they were just the USA rejects that had Italian, some sort of nationality within like their heritage and within their cultured past. You have instances like this was one that came up recently. This Noah Kai Bank situation that got a lot of attention because Landon Donovan reacted to it in his podcast, where he was like, "Yeah, if you're not sure if you want to play with USA or Germany, just go to them and just go to them, be done with it. Like if you don't want to be here, we don't want you here."
Yeah.
So like you have this.
And he said that about the sporting manager also leaving to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, exactly. Same boat. And I don't know how it works on that executive level, but at least on the player level, right? It's very simple. It's the country you're born in, country your parents are born in, or your grandparents, I believe, is as far as they go. I think there's
Yeah,
some
yep.
exceptions for your great grands, but I think that's a case by case basic. But I know at least the grandparents, that's as far as they go for sure. We've seen this time and time again where, you have guys like, at least in the MLS perspective, Brandon Vasquez and Diego Luna. They have Mexican heritage, but they were also like pretty much born and raised in the US. And both of them, at least in the Gold Cup and Gold Cup qualifying and whatnot, they represented Team USA. And I'm talking about Vasquez and Luna specifically. But how valuable would they have been to Team Mexico if that's where they went? And when you
Yeah.
have these dueling nationalities and options and where to go, we've mentioned it before. Obviously, the player is going to choose what works best for them. But this is not a soccer isolated incident where you have your nationality versus your heritage. Which one do you represent? Because at the end of the day, you kind of have that alignment with that country's flag and you are representative of who they are.
Yep.
And we even look at the Winter Olympics, so much necessary debate was given to Eileen Gu, but she is Chinese American at the end of the day, and she chose to represent China at the end of the day. Like she has the right to do that. Vasquez, Luna, Hanks, whomever it may be, they have the right for that choice. And at the end of the day, it's their choice. And if anyone has a problem with it, deal with it. They might score a goal against you. They might perform against you. That just is what it is. But I believe some guys, if they do choose to represent the country that you'd prefer, US or otherwise, you'd be, belting it out for them, being like, oh my gosh, look at what Diego Luna's doing for Team USA. Like, this guy's most certainly got to at least go for the spot when it comes to World Cup time and everything else. So it's not a one sport incident. And this most certainly has been something that we've seen time and time again. At the end of the day, the coaches have to make the choice also, even if they do represent. It's not just about the player, but will the coach even choose them?
Yeah, and I mean, interesting points to bring up, but also the team is the one who was just refusing to inform the player about the opportunity to represent Mexico in this situation. It just does not feel right, man. I feel like yes, under regulation and under FIFA's rules, they're not obligated to release the player for unofficial, participation with the national team. But also, how does the national team coach knows like how will he know that he wants to include him in the final list for an official competition if he's not being given the opportunity to see the player in a training camp?
I mean, that's coach's decision at the end of the day, right? Whether if it's Team Mexico or Team USA, the Canadians, it doesn't matter. Like, I think it's one thing to get the call up; it's another thing to actually make the roster, right?
Yeah,
And
and
based
that's
on
that's that's what I'm saying. Like he's not being because I mean you can see a player play and perform with their team, but that doesn't mean that he's gonna fit into the national team system with the players that are being called from all over the world, right? So of course, as a national team coach, you want to see how he works within that team and not just how he performs with his club that he trains for every day.
yeah, absolutely. Obviously we'll see how this shakes out when it all gets to that point. But I think the key thing to note is that I think it's one thing to get a call up, it's another thing to accept it. And who's to say that um and like who's to say that that would be the case at the end of the day? But even the opportunity to get called up is like a huge honor in itself. You know, I'm sure with and this happens a lot. Sometimes the court of public opinion really does weigh in on people, and there is a chance that there could be that opportunity, especially if you kind of come out there and be like, I do want to do it. There could just be that backlash and that pressure from others, the general media, the public, that could put that type of pressure on also to maybe make things sway that way. And that's really all I have to say about that because there's still so much in the air and there's still so much that goes into it.
Let's talk about Jude Terry, new talent for the U.S. Is he the new prospect? We saw Sullivan get signed by Manchester City. We saw Terry's beautiful goal against was it Seattle?
I think it
No,
was Portland.
Yeah, it was Portland. So oh, it's because they're both Korean. Okay. So what your thoughts on Jan Terry? I mean, should U.S. media be putting as much pressure on Jude as they're putting on him right now?
I mean, this is gonna happen no matter where you are, right? If you're a young prospect on the rise, especially if you're in a major market like the US, this is gonna happen no matter who you are, right? Whether if it's Jude Terry coming out of LAFC, whether if it's I'm crossing sports a little bit over here, but if it's Justin Herbert, this quarterback for the Chargers, even guys like Puka Nakua, the Rams, even though he's had some issues, but at least on the on-field perspective, those stars, if you perform well in a major market, your value skyrockets just from that alone. And of course, Jude Terry is going to be a guy that is going to bring a lot of interest and a lot of eyes to LAFC, especially on the youth side. And I can say this because of the things that we've learned and the things that we've seen. But at the very least, the MLS Next Pro system has a level of success to it, right? You get guys like Terry now, but then you also had some of the young kids of the past, like Diego Luna and Patrick Ajamong, Matt Freeze. They all came from that MLS Next Pro ecosystem. And I think maybe it's a step in showing that hey, there are these young American kids on the rise, on the up and up, and that could even draw more interest from some of these lower divisions to bring guys to MLS Next Pro and get them developed by the first team coaches. Because I don't know if you know this, I don't know if this is very well known, but MLS Next Pro teams are basically in lockstep with their respective parent clubs, right? So if you're a teenage prospect, you want to have a chance, maybe give it a go in the States, maybe you're post grad in the NCAA. The MLS Next Pro is a very feasible opportunity now that we've seen the number of prospects coming from there to the respective first teams only increasing by the year. I believe 2025 was like a record number for the MLS Next Pro and how many of their prospects got called up from last season. I think it was the record since they got established in 2022. So I think there's that trickle down effect of, hey, you get these young players getting to the first team. Now you have other prospects maybe wanting to come to MLS Next Pro. And then you have that cycle repeating where it comes back around. They develop in the second team, go to the first team, they pop off, even if they're international. But then you have prospects want to come back down to the MLS academy programs and kind of continue that vicious cycle of growth that the MLS has been striving for. And all things considered, in 4 years, MLS Next Pro has been a ripping success if that's what you want to go off of as their benchmark for the young prospects coming up.
Yep, and I think that can be the takeaway with Jude Terry in particular. Just the way the system has, ever since they created MLS Nets Pro, everything has become a stepping stone into a professional career, which, that was not a thing 5 years ago in the MLS or in the US
I
alone.
mean, it would have
You
been
you
the
really only
USL
had
at the time, yeah.
Yeah, you really only had 3 options: be drafted into the MLS, go make it, go try out for a USL one team, maybe make it into the championship side of it, or if they don't have a USL League One team, like just move up, or have a tryout, at MLS and see what happens, which is not really a thing. So it's kind of hard. So yeah, I mean, it's a testament to the way the US is growing the sport. Um, and how it's actually working. So I feel like that's the most positive thing we can take away from the Terry situation. And moving on to the Nets and last topic over, this episode. I mean, I know we're running up to like almost an hour, but we did have a little bit of side notes. So Champions League, Real Madrid are out, Barcelona are out, and then we see teams like Arsenal and Atletico Madrid make it into the semifinals of the Champions League. What did you make of the games? Were you able to watch any of them? I know you have a busy schedule.
Yeah, I was able to get around a little bit. One thing that kinda caught my eye for some reason is, like, this weird epidemic of, like, red cards and send-offs for some reason. Like, I feel like
The
every
second
single
halves.
for some reason, like, every single game, I feel like a team is trying to make a push, and for some reason, you either have a really silly foul, like the one against I believe it was the one against Real Madrid, where he
Kamaminga?
yeah, like he tackles Kane and then just like runs around in a circle with the ball. And because it's like a 2-for-1 foul, he's like, I'm not gonna give you two yellow cards. I'm just give you a red instead. Basically, is like what was the move there. Or the one in Barcelona where you take down a guy on a potential breakaway and that becomes an 11v10 also. And I feel like in this tournament this year, they're kind of not messing around with things like that anymore, or makers argue it's the best on best nature. Like you're trying so hard that you let those moments as kind of lapse in your head and you're not really on your P's and Q's all the time. But I really love the storylines and kind of what can come from this semi, right? Because of the two teams involved, or because of the four teams involved, but all of them have something going on, like in a huge way, right? Either like on a team-wide perspective or like a personal level, right? So like, can I give you like what I think is my biggest takeaway for these four teams, E-Man, and like you just kind of tell me if it makes sense or not?
Do it. I mean, you're gonna
So
tell me anyways.
I will. So Atletico Madrid, it'd be the perfect send-off for Griezmann. We already know he's going to MLS. We already know this is his last year. The perfect send-off, final trophy for Atletico for how long he's been there. Kind of like that'd be a perfect love letter back to the fans, right? He was like, "Hey, thank you for respecting my decision. Here's what I can give to you: the Champions League of all trophies in Europe." Arsenal going for the double, still at the top of the EPL table. I think there's like a month or so to go in their season, and a chance to go for one trophy is big enough. But to double that up, like Gunners fans, like get ready for that possibility because they could absolutely do so. PSG on the verge of a repeat, perhaps. How often do we see that? I can't imagine. I don't remember the last time personally, but only because I
What you
haven't
mean?
covered soccer
Real
enough.
Madrid?
Oh shoot, that's right. That's right.
Come on,
I
dog.
completely slipped my well,
Wow.
it didn't cross my mind because Madrid are out right now.
Wow, okay, that's a stab.
And also my fault because I didn't dig up enough on the last time like how many repeats have happened since the year 2000. Like, I'm
We
sorry,
had we
it's
had a
busy, right?
three-peat. What you mean? 3 years in a row?
I know, and that's on me for having the maps and lapse in memory.
Nah,
But
you're good,
this
man.
but
You have a business schedule, man.
the storyline stands, right? The opportunity for
Yeah,
PSG to repeat and the Club World Cup final too, like just the overall string of dominance that PSG have been on.
yeah.
And like this is kind of a okay, this one's kind of a weird one, but I think when you kind of tie it all together, it makes sense. Like you have like the two heads of that like Spurs teams, right? With Son and Kane. Son, he did win a trophy with Spurs before, like right before he came to LAFC. Kane has still really yet to win any of the big ones.
I mean, he won one with Bayern Munich, you know?
Yeah, but like he hasn't
He
actually
hasn't big yeah, he hasn't won a big one like you said.
he
I
hasn't
was
won a
gonna
big one
say
yet.
that. Yeah, I was gonna say if you're talking about stories, Kane could be a good story too, because like you're saying, he hasn't won anything that's significantly big, trophy-wise.
Like club or country, like England not winning the World Cup has been like, it's
It's
coming
coming
home,
home.
it's coming home. Exactly. Everyone's asking if it's coming home.
I don't think it's coming home, man.
But like but like at the very least, like having that one big trophy in your cabinet would be such a hats off for a guy who I think like his reputation, I think it's just an English soccer thing, is very like it's very kind of like I want to say kind of like Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott-ish, where like you do a lot of great things, you put up a lot of big numbers, but have you won a trophy for me in God knows how long? Not really. Are you still reliving the glory days? Potentially. I can say so for the Cowboys. I can't really say so for Bayern Munich or England, especially because Bayern were there, I think, last year in the final also, or 2 years ago, whenever it was. But that's the chance also. It's the redemption of Bayern because they recently made a final and didn't close the deal. So you have that redemption story also with the potential of Kane lifting a major cup for the first time. And
Sure.
that's what makes this part, the most fun is just these ambiguous storylines of because they're so connected to each other. And who knows, maybe Harry Kane can use that momentum and maybe do some damage for England in a couple of months because they have that already pre-winning mentality of we know what it takes to win, we know we can do it, you know the level to perform to actually do it. Maybe that sparks something in Kane when England come to the US in a couple of months. Who knows? I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it's a possibility. And I think it'd be fun to and honestly, I think Kane is so fun. He's just such a stand-up guy. Like, I don't know. He's one of those
He's a
guys
hard
just like
worker. I'm
he's
not
one
sure
of
if you saw the one where he lost the ball, and I mean, he chased the ball for like a good 2 minutes, and then finally, when they were almost at the goal for at Bayern's goal, he just slides and, like, steals the ball back or, like, sends it into, like, a throw-in. But you know how much, like, work ethic you gotta have in you to chase the ball for that long?
I mean, I remember, and this is an anecdote that I know about Kane because I love this show. But have you seen the Hot One show, the one with Eat the Spicy Chicken Wings? Okay, so Kane was on that thing years ago, right? And I remember he was telling a story of like I think he busted up his right leg, I think, which is his preferred leg. And he said that during the entire time he was rehabbing his right leg, he was training his left leg with the same amount of like detail and dexterity that he would have on his right. So when his both legs got better and he was able to play again, he was just so good on both sides because he trained on the off leg so much that he became kind of ambidextrous in that way. And that was one of the first times I was like, oh, like this guy legit kind of can go after it. It just kind of sucks that he's been on teams that kind of can't. But with Bayern, the opportunity is most certainly there. And if you can take down the demons of PSG, because I'm pretty sure they lost to them in that final, if I'm not mistaken,
I
and that
think
would
it did.
be even sweeter, at least to go en route from a semi into another Champions League final.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of Arsenal and Atletico Madrid, and you were talking about memes earlier. Have you seen the memes about this match? You
One
haven't?
specifically.
The ones, the what's it called, Harambal?
Okay, so I've
Well,
I've
I
seen
was
it.
made over
I've
here
seen
last night.
No, no, go for it. I've kind of seen it, but I don't really get it. But for anyone who maybe has not seen this thing or come across it, can you explain what it is?
I'll explain to you because I was also a little bit confused about it, but Jorge from Top United was telling me about it because I was so confused. Like, what do you mean Harambal? He was like, yeah, it's because neither one attacks. It's not like pretty football. So that's what it is. Two teams parking the bus. How would they score?
Okay.
And I mean, if we know Atletico Madrid, we know that's the one thing they do. And I mean, the way Arteta's been playing lately, it looks like that might be something they plan for in the final as well. Well, I mean, semifinal. So it'll be interesting to see. Definitely roll a clip somewhere around here, up here.
القول قول الصوارم كي تسترد المظالم حتى الأراضي نسام رسول أهل العزائم القول قول الصوارم كي تسترد المظالم حتى الأراضي نسام رسول أهل العزائم القول قول الصوارم كي تسترد المظالم حتى الأراضي
Somewhere. But yeah, I mean, we've made it to the end, man. And every week we do this MLS picks. Last time we were on the pod, we were supposed to do like an Excel sheet. I think you mentioned it that you were gonna work on that one.
I still need to go through that.
No worries, man. But yeah, I mean,
But
we've gotten to that
eventually
point.
but
The next
eventually I will
floor,
create something for you. I'll create something for you. I'll
one
make it
day,
look pretty.
episode 20, maybe.
We'll
Yo,
probably get to
also
like
congrats to
June.
us, man. We made it into the what is it? 90-10% of people that make it past episode 10. This is episode 11.
Let's go. We're
Yeah.
in the double digits.
Oh yeah,
We didn't
baby.
get a chance to celebrate last time because Clay was here. And we had to be all cordial and
Don't say it
professional.
like that.
No, it's not a dig on Clay. It's not a dig on Clay. We wanted to be professional. He was in studio. We wanted to be
Of
the best
course.
of our best selves rather
Yeah.
than, the rather than the two goofballs and the one pro in the room.
I know. Which is, I mean, I think that's what makes our conversations interesting. I feel like we bring a different perspective. Me, if anything, I'll bring more of like the fan side of it. You bring the stats, and John brings the on-field experience. So yeah. But speaking of on-field experience, based on what you've seen on the field, who do you see winning this weekend, Atlanta or Nashville?
You know, Nashville just score at will. That's one of my big things. And Atlanta had a really tough time coming back against Chattanooga. And I think that train can keep rolling for Nashville SC.
All right. I think just because of what I saw last night, no, not last night, it was the night before. I think Nashville, we got it in the bag. So I'll go with that. Now, interesting game. We got New England Revolution going against Columbus.
I
What do you
mean,
think?
these are two teams that kind of squeaked out of their respective games in the Open Cup. Like New England went to pens and Columbus trailed like the whole game, and they just fired off 3 quick ones in the second half, if I'm not mistaken. But I think the Crew are going to ride that wave a little bit better than the Rabs will. I think the Crew are just going to ride that wave a little bit more, especially with just how consistent at least I feel like they've been a little bit better than I think they have an opportunity to really take that and flip it in regular season play and ride the Open Cup wave better than New England will, just because of how the result went at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think Columbus is going to take that one. Then we got Charlotte. I mean, we got New York City versus Charlotte FC.
I mean, didn't they play this exact game like a couple weeks ago?
I think you're thinking playoffs. Wait, no. Yeah, they no. Last time we played it was I think it was like week 4.
Yeah, you guys did play them recently.
Let's see. No, we have not played. Oh, well, hold on. I'm in the wrong. Okay, let's look at matches.
Okay, I might be mistaking that. Yeah, you're right. I was thinking the playoffs last year.
Yeah, you're thinking of
You're
playoffs.
right. You're right. I was
We
thinking
got
last year playoffs.
murder at home that time.
I
But
mean, you'll be
and the
able
thing is
to.
that Charlotte did beat them in penalties at Yankee Stadium. I was there to witness that. It was a fun experience, making it to the Yankee Stadium as media.
Oh yeah, that
I
would
should
be.
start talking more about like the little stories and like things that I experienced as a member of media.
I mean, that's ridiculous. No matter how you go about it, like Yankee Stadium, like even
Yeah,
if
like
it's
even going as a
soccer,
fan,
football,
it's
like
like it's a I would say what's it called, milestone.
yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's such a historic place to be in. But yeah. So New York City FC, Charlotte. Who you got?
I think they're both riding really strong waves, and I think there's an opportunity for. I think there's an opportunity for them to. I mean, they're literally right there, neck and neck, and I think it'll be the same. I think I'll put this in the tie column.
God, here we go again. Honestly,
There's always one. That's the thing. I haven't looked up all of them, but I at least know of my picks. There's at least been one that have ended in a draw, and it's just a matter of which one it is.
for sure. But I mean, just based on our records outside of home, with all the pain in my heart, like I think New York City is gonna take this one.
Humble
Yeah,
for once.
realistic. All right, what you mean? This guy, bro. Okay, interesting ones. We got what? 3 more? Nah, 2 more.
Two more,
So
two
we
one,
got
two
2
three.
more. So we got Minnesota. James Rodriguez, who will not be playing, versus Portland. What you got?
I mean, I'm going to go with a very simple logic that Portland have only lost on the road and Minnesota are unbeaten at home, and I think the trend continues for the Loons.
Okay, I think Minnesota might take this one, to be honest. And lastly, we got Seattle versus St. Louis. I think it's going to be an exciting game. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I think Seattle Sounders is going to take this one. They want some of that revenge for being knocked out from the Champions Cup. Yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Copy and paste.
Boom. But yeah, guys, we've reached the end of the show, and I mean, it's always fun. I mean, today John was missed, of course, and can't wait for the next one. Definitely stay on the lookout. We got something interesting coming for you guys. But Ryan, any last words from you?
Let's have some more fun footy along the way, and I'm so stoked about the start of the NHL playoffs. The Sabres have broken a 15-year playoff drought. I'm going to watch the Sabres in playoff hockey for the first time since I was freaking 12 years old. And I am so excited for Sunday. Sunday, the 19th is the first game. I have a next pro game also. I might be doing a split screen. I haven't decided it yet. I need to figure out the 2 kickoff times, but I am so stoked to watch the Sabres back in playoff hockey. And I'm always happy.
What's the game you'll be calling?
It's going to be Minnesota United and Colorado Rapids 2. Rapids 2 have yet to get a win in their season, but they're on the up and up right now. They were so close so many times, but they've coughed up a couple of wins here and there. And
Well,
I
I'm
think
gonna
this is their chance. I think this is their chance. So it's an 8 p.m. Eastern. It would be a 6 p.m. local kickoff, One Football MLS YouTube page.
Boom. Make sure you guys tune in so y'all can see the distracted Ryan on this game. Nah, I'm kidding.
You would blow up my phone though, and you have once or twice. I've gotten the
Yeah.
occasional text from you during a game. I'll be like, I'll look at my watch and just be like, okay, back to business. I just see it's Emmanuel Lahu, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn this off and move on.
No, but yeah, I can't wait to see the celebrations. Or like you sleep up and you're like, yeah, like So I'm gonna tune in and listen for that.
It depends, dude. I had a 1-0 game last night, and that thing was over in a half an hour, only because that goal was scored in a half an hour, and no one did anything the other 60. But once again, these are next pro guys. These are the next guys up. Going to be a lot of kids, especially from the academy or guys fresh from the NCAA, trying to prove that they're worthy. And a couple of them did get their chance in the Open Cup also, since we were on the topic, and they get to return to their respective next pro teams, which would be really interesting how they, like we mentioned before in the MLS segment, how they ride that wave and keep things moving.
For sure. So yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in, and see you on the next one.
Boom. Not gonna lie, even though we did go off on tangents a couple of times, I think some of the discussions that